Actually, waiting on two.
Well, we got Pat on screen. We got virtual not tonight.
Is Chris coming too? Larry, turn your microphone on. You probably need to be too, Rob. All right, we'll get started without Chris. Welcome this evening to the March 9th regular meeting of the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation Conservation District Board of Commissioners. I'm going to call the regular session to order at 6:04 with a roll call.
Commissioner Higgins,
Yeah, power just got restored, Laytonville, here.
Commissioner Newman,
Here.
Commissioner Coleman,
I'm here.
Commissioner Benson,
Present.
and President Dale.
Here. So. Maybe we can lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag
flag
of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So at this point in our meeting, we would welcome public comment on items not on our agenda. Oh, would you like to report out a closed session?
Yeah, there was no reportable action taken during tonight's closed session.
So at this portion of our meeting, we will take comment from the public on items not on our agenda. If you wish to speak on items not on the agenda, please approach the podium in an orderly fashion, state your name and where you're from, and let us have it. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to consent calendar.
So move.
Please.
My name is Kathy Rodriguez and I'm with SJR Masonry and Construction in McKinleyville. I own and operate a local masonry and construction company in Humboldt County. And I'm an open shop and I wanted to know where you stand on negotiations on the PLA for the wind development project and how we can assure that our voices for non-open shops and concerns are being heard and the importance are taken seriously.
We typically don't comment back.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
And your name is Kathy?
Yes, I'm Kathy with SJR Masonry and Construction. I'm also with the Humboldt Builders Exchange. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure staff would be happy to answer those questions at any time. If you call the office or.
Thanks, Kathy.
Hi, my name is Pat Hooven. I'm president of the Humboldt County Builders Exchange. I'm just here on behalf of our membership to reiterate the point that we want our open contractors to get a fair shot at the offshore wind project and that their employees have the opportunity to work on the project without being signatory to the union of their craft. I just want to make sure you guys knew we were still interested. Been a while. Thank you.
Anyone else care to comment on items not on the agenda? Going once, twice, done. All right, we're moving on to consent calendar. I had a motion I heard.
Yes, Pat Higgins, so move.
I have a second. Any no discussion on the consent calendar? All in favor? Oh, we have to roll call on everything. Okay, because Patty's in Laytonville.
Commissioner Higgins,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
and President Dale.
Yes. All right, moving on to communication reports, correspondence.
Okay. Indeed. Have a brief overview of a couple of things that we are working on.
I lost audio.
Okay.
We're not saying anything right now, Pat.
Okay, thank you.
So on March 15th, we're going to get another ship come in. Happened here. So on March 15th, there's going to be another ship come in to Green Diamond. I just want to bring that to your attention. As you see the vessels coming into port. On the 16th, we're going to have the Harbor Safety Committee, and there's a tug report that basically does valid bull tests on all the tugs that utilize Humboldt Bay. And then we're working on updating the harbor safety plan. And so there's changes to the harbor safety plan that we're looking at. And again, the Harbor Safety Committee is comprised of a whole variety of different members: Coast Guard, Army Corps of Engineers, Sheriff's Office, recreational boaters, commercial fishermen, Harbor District, et cetera, et cetera. It's a relatively large group of people, and they play a critical function for the port. As part of the Harbor Safety Plan, there is a subcommittee of the Harbor Safety Committee, which is the Slip Line Committee. And this was the result of a correspondence that received from Oscar, and it was because of basically one of the fuel barge ran into the South Jetty. And so there's been sort of an incident where the Coast Guard and the state OSPR program and the Harbor Safety Committee have evaluated that and have been addressing and outlining improved safety procedures for when the fuel barges and other vessels come into port. And so there's likely going to be some recommendations that are going to be included into the Harbor Safety Plan in the coming months, specifically dealing with those issues. We've been working on the Woodley Island Marina dredging. It's something that we've been working on for a long time. And mainly the issue, as the board well knows, is because we just quite frankly haven't had the money to dredge. And because we have these new projects coming on board, namely the Nordic Aqua Farms and the Crowley Offshore Wind Leases, and we've been paying off debt service and other things, is that we feel like we can borrow some money to dredge Woodley Island Marina. And so the plan is basically we're currently getting the permits from the EPA to utilize hoods. We have all the rest of the permits that go through, I believe it's 2029 to dredge Woodley Island Marina. And we've been coordinating with the city of Eureka, and they're definitely interested in dredging the Eureka side corresponding with us. What that means is we can save a significant amount of money on mobilization costs. And so we're anticipating coming back to the board sometime in April, and we should have some quotes from some lenders on what the package is that we're able to borrow to do those. And in the meantime, we're going to be meeting with the dredge subcommittee, and we've been meeting at the staff level of kind of establishing what the priority dredge areas are. Because even though we have these new revenues, we're not even going to be able to borrow enough money to do all the dredging because we just can't afford it. That's the normal routine. We don't have the money to dredge. And so we're not going to be able to dredge 100% of the money. That's just the reality. And so therefore we have to prioritize the dredging areas to get the most bang for the buck. And we're planning to release the RFP if everything goes to plan in May of 2023 and award in June. And then the dredge work window is July 15th to October 15th. That's the only time that we can dredge. And so we got to meet this dredge window. So I'm happy to report that everything is on schedule with that. And the board should anticipate basically seeing the loan package sometime in April.
Larry, can I ask some questions about the dredging?
Sure.
Please? Yeah, just as a new commissioner, I'm still coming up to speed. What are some of the constraints or do you foresee for the dredging relative to getting under the dock, some of those hard to reach spaces?
I don't think we're going to be able to, most likely, we're not going to be able to get those because of the specialized equipment. The only method that we're authorized to dredge is with a clamshell. And with the clamshell, you can't get underneath those basically the walkways. And anybody that goes on the marina knows that the sediment has accumulated so much at low tide. There's the pinch points and they're really damaging the marina equipment. The only way that without completely tearing apart the entire marina, which is really difficult, because you have all the utilities and everything that's set into play, is to use a suction dredge. And we're trying to get the permits for that. But thus far, we have not been able to get the permits to use a suction dredge. And so most likely those areas, even though they're damaging our equipment, will likely not be part of the stretching cycle.
Thank you.
And then I don't know why this is slow. So we're probably going to have a special meeting later on this month for a couple of items. I said the 23rd. I think it's most likely going to be either the 29th or 30th for a couple of items that will be coming back before the board and that need to get taken care of before your next regularly scheduled meeting. And then I'm going to be on my first vacation since COVID. And so I'm going to miss your June meeting. And so you guys can make sure you take care of everything for us here at the district. That's my report. And I'm sorry, one more thing is that a couple days ago, as part of the broadband cable landing projects, and again, these are the cables that are permitted to go across. Here's the offshore wind area. These are the broadband cables. They land at the Redwood Marine Terminal 2, and basically what happens is there's at this location, they do a directional bore where they went down 1.2 miles under the seabed. And that's about 35 feet. And so what happened is that we really, with this broadband, it's really been an exciting opportunity for us is that we've been working with about 12 different professors from Humboldt State, Cal Poly Humboldt, Berkeley, USGS, Oregon State, a whole variety to really try to do an earthquake early warning system. And so after the most recent earthquake, they rushed in and they did 44 of these modules and they put those along Old Arcata Road and they were able to use those and to do earthquake early warning. And really what the plan is that as these are installed, they can send a pulse of energy through this area. And this is the same area where the triple junction is. And so this is really going to be critical information for our region to get early earthquake information system. And so the cable companies have been very cooperative and we've been working with Cal Poly Humboldt and all of these different universities and everything. And so these are some of the nodes that they put out to start to do some background work on that. And so over the course of the next couple of years, you're probably going to see continual deployment of that. And the long-term plan for the state of California is for every broadband cable throughout the entire state that goes underground, that they reserve just one of the nodes so that they can use that as part of an earthquake early warning system throughout the entire state of California. And this is really one of the first spearhead ones. The governor announced, I think it was last summer, that they were able to detect earthquakes using this system. And so it's something that we're really happy that they're working on our property and that we really made initial coordinations with offshore broadband cables. And so it's just all part of this mission that we have of doing scientific research in all forms. And it's amazing when you do some of these projects, some of the outreach efforts that happen on those. So anyway, I'm just happy to report that because I think it was really, really cool.
Yeah, as a non-seismologist, or is this, I'm assuming this isn't predictive, it's mostly gathering data at the time of quakes.
Well, what this does is this sends real-time information via satellite, these nodes, and these are directly coordinated into the system. And the goal, I'm not a geologist, I just play one tonight, is that they basically are sending out these pulse waves at as fast as the speed of light, essentially, and that they're able to predict the early shock waves that happen prior to an earthquake, to truly do a early earthquake warning system through these broadband networks. It's pretty amazing, the work. I mean, I don't do any of it. These scientists are just amazing.
Okay, don't give yourself some credit, Larry. You do most of it.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So is that the way that we get a text the second, I mean, before we even really feel the earthquake, our phones are beeping. Well, at least the last
It's,
couple.
anyway, I'm not an expert in this, but we've had really the experts in this field. They've all come up here, reviewed the sites. You know, I've been very fortunate to sit in a lot of the meetings and sharing a lot of the data that they have. There's a lot of new technology in the earthquake early warning system that is really going to be coming out of these broadband cables because they're proliferating all over the place. And they're really excited because these cables go right through the triple junction in the subsea floor. And it's really going to be able to help advance science and potentially save lives in the future. So anyway, that's all that I have to report. So Chris? Rob?
Just FYI, we've got a number of things coming to you next month. PDIP for infrastructure development program application. Field grass. That's it. So we've got a number of things.
All right. District Council,
Nothing for me tonight.
nothing. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Newman.
Not much for me tonight. Got some bad news for the commercial fishermen, California and probably Oregon as well. As far as salmon season, it looks as though the reports for both the Klamath and Sacramento rivers are basically predicting under escapement for next year's season. So there'll likely not be a salmon season commercially and possibly even recreationally in 2023. And if you were still crabbing like I was a couple weeks ago when that 27-foot northwest swell came, about 20% of the crab pots aren't where we last left them, and we're still finding them. But it's just a couple more of those challenges. Otherwise, keep it short tonight. And that's it for me.
Thanks. Commissioner Coleman.
Participated in a number of subcommittee meetings, including meeting with the CEC, California Energy Commission, our Labor Relations Board, a number of others. But what I'm really hoping to report on tonight, I brought some pictures. It's if any of you are familiar with the Perilous Plunge, the annual fundraiser for the Redwood Discovery Museum. That was our team last year doing some renewable energy themed stuff. And I actually even wore my Perilous Plunge t-shirt today. And so there's like where people make donations, so people jump into Humboldt Bay. And I even got the really cool like helmet for doing it last year, although I think I have to or get to give it back to them, so I don't have to.
You don't jump in with that.
Oh, of course, yeah, it sink right to the bottom. So I am shamelessly plugging, if you're a fan of science education for youngsters, you can go to the Redwood Discovery Museum webpage and support your favorite plunger. It doesn't necessarily have to be me, but how many other opportunities do you get to tell a harbor commissioner to go jump in the harbor? So take advantage of that. And yeah, that's my. I'll just leave that there. So it has a plunger on it in case you didn't notice, to like signify the plunge, of course.
Really is pretty crafty.
And I do wish you the best down there in Laytonville, Pat, because I was one of the many Humboldt residents who spent a couple forced days in Laytonville a few weeks ago on my way back up, trying to get back up here. Got snowed in, couldn't go north or south. And you know, the people of Laytonville were delightful, very welcoming, and ate a lot of gas station food and bought multiple pairs of dry socks.
Not a lot of places drop buy socks in Laytonville, is there?
I think we got. all-
Geiger's Market.
Tigers, yeah, I don't think they have any more unless they restock their socks.
It's quite the place. Commissioner Benz?
Yeah, sure. Just my apologies to the commission and staff for missing the last meeting. We all have travel stories. I was caught in Kansas City. Snow, I finally got in here at midnight instead of 2 in the afternoon, so I missed that. And I noticed reading the minutes that it's not good to miss a meeting because you get appointed with 3 committees. So apparently I'll be serving on the 2x2 committee, the dredging committee, and the budget committee, all 3 things that I'm quite interested in. So right.
And if you have interest in other committees, please speak up.
Yeah, I'll try these first.
Yeah, that was actually quite fun.
Oh, you almost got to be board chair. Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was definitely enjoyable. I too, we had a couple of meetings, and one of them I thought was, we've had a couple of meetings with Nordic. We've been talking about windmills, wind turbines. I apologize for that. Our heavy lift dock. But nothing of any substantial news. It will be interesting to see what our loan looks like to dredge. And it's a little frustrating. We're gonna have to borrow money, and we're still not going to be able to dredge as much as we need to. I'm with Pat. And I forgot to let Pat talk before me. Patrick, I'm done.
Well, Greg, I'm here in Laytonville in the Eel River Recovery Project office because I've been called by the people in the hills here. And we got really great things going on here, restoring the riparian zone, trying to stop the sediment from the hill slopes. And now this last month, I put my shoulder to the wheel with some amazing people locally, and we filed a substantial forest health grant. So my work has been challenging and rewarding. Tomorrow, almost every student from Round Valley Elementary and Round Valley High School will come down within a couple of blocks of the school, and we're deep planting cottonwoods and willows. And we want to turn the kids into bioengineers. So I don't want reality, Greg, I want magic. And but the Harbor District, this is the end of the new market tax credit. This should be like champagne for everybody in the audience. Tomorrow, we are over the loan that we took out to completely rehabilitate Redwood Terminal 2, and we will be reaping the benefits from that. We went from about 97 grand or 72 grand a year in revenue, and our projected revenue is about a little short of $1 million, and the upside potential is phenomenal. So I didn't want to let that go by. The new market tax credit has cycled, and the staff pulled it off, and we have huge and enormous benefits to the community that will radiate forward. So it's my pleasure to serve on the district and the Humboldt Bay Economic Development Association, who was a partner in this. And so more good things coming. The Harbor District is where the action is. We're gonna bring prosperity, and I'm all for it. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Patrick. And you're right. That is pretty, we're gonna talk about that later on. All right. No other reports, no other committee reports? Oh, we do have 2 correspondences. One from the Core Hub regarding,
About the agenda items.
okay, those are on the agenda items. About our resolution coming up. All right. 10A, consider authorizing unfinished business, consider authorizing executive director to enter into an agreement with the city of Eureka regarding marketing for cruise ships.
So I'll go ahead and take that, is that we've been working with the city of Eureka and the county of Humboldt and a number of volunteer organizations and nonprofits to really, bring cruise ships into the region. Nobody sees this as a panacea. We're not expecting to have a lot of cruise ships in here. But we have had a few cruise ships coming into port. And what that does for the region is a whole host of things. Is Number one is the bar pilots, the longshoremen, all of the maritime industry. It keeps people busy because we really don't have the number of ships that we have. And so all of those people, in order to keep them here and keep them active, is we have to have ships coming into port. And so first and foremost, it really keeps the jobs and then cuts down on traveling all the way out of the area to Sacramento and to the San Francisco Bay Area to do that. So that's really is the first and foremost. And so between the county and the city of Eureka and the Harbor District, we basically have outlined a strategy. And so the city of Eureka and myself really worked and put a fairly detailed scope of work together. What we would do to work together and partner to do cruise ships. And so the discussion is that we had at the 2x2 committee, which we also had during the last month that Commissioner Newman sat on between the city of Eureka and the Harbor District, where we discussed this in some detail, was really outlining that for $20,000 that we would create these multiple different teams, an infrastructure and logistics team, which is really focused on the terminals and the customs and all of those different aspects and everything that has to happen there. And then the cruise ship and marketing and coordination team. And that's really kind of setting up and really being the communication, having a one-stop shop with the cruise ship industries and the Humboldt, and really being the connection between the tour companies, the companies that when they give a tour of the Redwood Forest, or they go to the zoo, or they go to Ferndale or these other places, the local tour companies, so that they can directly contract with these cruise ship companies and then get the jobs that come with that within the tourism sector. And so really kind of coordinating this whole thing and detail of how would we set that up. And then once the cruise ship gets here and the passengers are sitting here at the dock, that's when the city of Eureka comes in. And they're kind of the passenger fulfillment team. And the city of Eureka is really coordinating to make sure that the tour companies that have passengers that are ready to go off and go on these tours for these amazing places that we have in Humboldt County, that the tour companies, everybody knows where to go to get your tour. There's kind of a reception area, all of these kinds of things that they have up. And then plus, in addition to that, so that there are shuttles from the cruise ship into Old Town and some of the other selective places around the city of Eureka, so that the downtown merchants can take advantage of it when cruise ships come into. And then we also have kind of the administration and the long-term strategic planning side of the equation, and that team, because at the end of the day, you have to make sure that we're collecting the revenue from the cruise ship industry, that everybody's getting paid, and that we're really doing the long-term strategy. And so we've kind of been doing this ad hoc a little bit, and the Harbor District has been paying. We're members of what's called Cruise the West, with all of the ports on the West Coast that have cruises, whether it's Catalina, San Diego, Astoria, San Francisco, Humboldt Bay. And they really set up and do a lot of the marketing for us. And the big event is there's an event usually it's in Florida, which is where most of the cruise ship industry are. But I can tell you during COVID, cruise ship industry took a gigantic, dramatic hit. And even though there was a dramatic, giant hit to the cruise ship industry, is that the new market of Humboldt Bay is that the cruise ship industry is starting to discover that this is a great place and the people are welcoming, and that they open them up with warm arms and say, thank you for coming to us. And we'd like to share, these beautiful things that we get to experience all the time. And so that's my spiel. And again, it's really is the county of Humboldt, the city of Eureka, and the Harbor District long-term partnership. And so with that, I would recommend that the board authorize me to enter into an agreement with the city of Eureka based upon this scope of work.
I will so move and ask the chair for the floor when he wishes.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second. Patrick, I'm gonna start over here on my left. Let Aaron do our normal routine. So Aaron, go ahead.
One of the advantages to promoting more cruise ships in the Humboldt Bay is tonnage for our Army Corps dredging of the channel. which ultimately makes Humboldt Bay a safer place for everyone to operate. So I think that everyone saw the energy that happened with the two cruise ships we had last fall, and this is a good thing. I think we should make it happen.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much more to add to that. I think, like you said, it's not, sometimes people have like sold cruise ships as that's gonna solve every problem that Humboldt Bay has, which obviously it's not, but it's, it's a piece of the puzzle. It's diversifying our industry, bringing more ships in. I would like to see like continued efforts as the ships come in, that it can benefit local businesses and local tour providers as much as possible, local, recreational fishing charters or anything. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that could probably benefit from that influx of customers. And I was looking and assuming that the 20,000 per year is coming from the city of Eureka, but that wasn't clear to me. Is that true?
That's correct. And
Okay.
we're hoping the county of Humboldt will contribute some, but this agreement is with the city of Eureka.
Thanks.
It seems like a large scope of work for $20,000.
I think there's a lot of volunteer work there.
Yeah, I don't think it covers.
Still helping me with my learning curve as a new commissioner. The size cruise ships that come in here, are we talking 500 people get off, 1,000 people get off, 1,500 people get off?
Yeah, so the size of the cruise ship is limited by Humboldt Bay. The maximum, and don't quote me on this exactly, but generally speaking, the largest ship that comes into Humboldt Bay is about 900 feet long. And so we'll never get the big giant Carnival cruise ships or anything like that. Those won't fit into Humboldt Bay. And so the passengers that we're talking, most of the ships that we've seen have been in the 350 to the 500 passenger range, is where we're at. And then the larger one, I think it could get up to, let's say, around 700 passengers approximately. And then there's additional crew members that are on as well. But those are the approximately what we call the sweet spot for Humboldt. And to a certain extent, these are kind of your more specialty cruises, and they tend to be a little bit more higher end passengers that have a little bit more discretionary spending that come in. And those are the ones that like these kinds of port of calls.
And has the ground transportation been a constraint, or has it been adequate to move those people to their excursion points?
Well, I can tell you on the last one, I thought the ground transportation was absolutely fabulous.
I heard there's a great bus driver. that-
Yes, there was a great, there was an issue with it, and myself, I was driving, the county of Humboldt, I think, had a van, 2 or 3 people, the city of Eureka. We shuttled people. I did, I think, 20 trips between the cruise ship and with 4 passengers at a time, and was welcome to Humboldt. This is the city of Eureka starting the tour, and and they all said that just that personal touch, and that's what it takes to do this. Everybody just stepping in and doing what needs to be done, and that's what we do at the Harbor District and Eureka and the county and everybody. It's whatever it takes to do it. That's that's the only way stuff, because we do not have the money to have some big giant staff, and so this is all done the Humboldt County way, which is volunteers and nonprofits and just a little bit of extra effort.
Is there a packet of information that goes to people who are arriving here that tell them what their options are, offer a land acknowledgement about the WEOT people, or what do they know when they step off?
Well, at this point, we're just starting this, and so there's nothing like that right now. There is nothing like.
It's part of
that.
your committee now.
Yeah, I'm saying. On the cruise
Committee. Okay.
So yeah, that's one of the tasks, is for us to start assembling brochures and other things that we have, and what is the package that we can market to the area. And it's something that the 2x2 committee could have those discussions with the city of Eureka as the passenger.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Patrick?
Thank you, Greg. You never want to ignore me when I raise my hand. That would
I-
give you
I-
bad habits. And I'm not sure I got a second yet, but
You do. Aaron seconded.
thank you, Aaron. Way back, we leaned on this way too hard. this was going to be our salvation. We are going to get the big ships. And we were spending 50 grand a year and getting a lot less return and reward for it. And I think we've grown into this. So I have gone from skeptic to approving, because I do think that this is the number of people we can deal with. It makes sense for us and it makes money for us to do so. And so I think this is kind of in ecology and economy, in diversity is stability. And so I favor this as something that, allows people to understand the character of Humboldt, helps us make a buck, gives people a way to invest their time on behalf of the community, and get some business for the merchants. So it's a sweet deal. And I couldn't say it better than Larry Otker. So I won't speak further, but I do favor this, and thank everybody, City of Eureka, County of Humboldt, Tourism Bureau, everybody that's helping with this. Every little bit helps. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. I couldn't say it better. I have been down and watched them come in, watch them debark. I think debarking is the correct term. And people are thrilled. You don't see a ton. I mean, it's not like there's 1,000 people getting off these ships. There's 100, 150. I don't know what the average is, but they do keep numbers like that. I should probably know that. And they spend money here. They go on. Well, just think about getting off a ship. You're having having a nice time on your ship. Have your coffee, and then getting in a car with Larry, and getting a tour of Eureka, or a ride around Eureka. He is a good driver. Larry is a good driver. I will give it that. But then think about this. I believe that Leroy Zerlang has driven one of these buses as well, hasn't he?
He did.
Leroy's
He
not
had
a
the
good
Gator. It
driver.
was the Gator. He drove
Oh.
the Gator.
I just wonder how you choose to put him in with Leroy versus Larry, but I'll leave it at that. So we have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item?
I think Kelly was trying to get on.
We have Scott Adair here to talk. Good,
No,
thanks.
Kelly's got her hand up, Greg.
Kelly does?
Yep.
Nobody from the audience gets to talk. They have to be in the meeting to do public comment.
Are we,
Please.
are we waiting? Okay.
No, you're on, Scott.
Hello, commissioners, staff, Scott Adair, County of Humboldt, Office of Economic Development. I was here today to talk on the resolution, which is coming up on the agenda, but I can add some context and some additional information to the conversation that you're having around cruise ships. When Larry or Rob or other staff share that they're having meetings with the county and with the city, I can affirm that that is correct. We have sat in several meetings with your staff to discuss strategy related to port activities and port development and how the county can help to support those strategies and activities, which includes cruise ships. Although the city seemed to be first to the table on a monetary offer of support, the county is allocating funding for this effort. County has agreed to allocate $10,000 and then an additional $10,000 in in-kind match in staff time to help support cruise ship efforts. And that's something that we'll have to figure out how to memorialize in the future, but it's something that we've already discussed internally with our county administrative officer and board supervisors. So here just to reaffirm that commitment from the county and also the relationship on working together on cruise ships. I can also personally attest that when the last cruise ship was in town, my daughter was showing me the Facebook feed of all of the residents from throughout the county who were driving down here just to take pictures of the cruise ship. So at the very least, it's drawing attention to the harbor and to what's happening here. And I look forward to commenting on the resolution later. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Lonix Landry, and I'm one of the citizens here in Humboldt County in Eureka, lifetime citizen. This is exciting to me too. I love the opportunities that this brings. And I can also envision that there would be opportunities to showcase a lot of the awesome work that is happening here on our bay, being that we are the place for ground zero for sea level rise in our subduction zone. With sea level rise coming, we are ground zero in California for that. And there's lots of awesome work that is happening. And I think part of my comments here would be to propose another committee for Commissioner Benson around showcasing a lot of the great restoration work that is happening in our community. And I think we'll be interested to learn about that as well. And that all those things are going to be happening here first. So why not showcase a lot of the awesome work that we're doing in regards to living shorelines and the other things we're doing to adapt and adjust to sea level rise and all those issues. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment on our resolution? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. We have a roll call.
Okay, so before I do that, I just wanted to tell you that it looks like there are 2 cruise ships scheduled for May and another one scheduled for September. And there are a couple of others that are tentative for this year that we're still working on. And so with that, Commissioner Higgins.
Patrick,
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
and President Dale.
yes. All right. So continuing on. We're going to talk about the budget preparation schedule. No, we got one thing from that. Yeah, consider adopting resolution 2023-05, a resolution concerning offshore wind development off the west coast of the United States and around Humboldt Bay.
All right. I've got quite a bit of information here, but I'm going to try to do this quick and efficiently. So there are several simultaneous activities occurring right now associated with offshore wind. Do you need that? So there's the offshore wind farms. And those are BOEM's offshore wind leases and associated projects. And those are the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and various power companies that are doing that. Then there is the Harbor District project, which is the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation Conservation District in Crowley. Ultimately, there will need to be transmission projects, and the project proponents for those are to be determined. And then there is the Baywide Offshore Wind Master Plan, which that's not necessarily the exact name of it, but the Samoa Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District, with support from the Harbor District, is underway in evaluating opportunities baywide regarding associated with offshore wind. So all of those things are currently happening. It's just for context. Also, for background context, the county just recently passed this resolution 22-1584 on November 29th. And it's very similar, nearly identical to the resolution that's before you tonight. District staff used that resolution as a template, and we slightly modified it. And it's really important for us to be in collaboration and synced up with the county. And so, one of the driving factors behind this resolution is for us to be aligned with the county. The resolution, both the county and the district one, calls for a regional vision and roadmap. County resolution commits to that, and the district resolution before you tonight commits to this regional vision and roadmap. This resolution before you commits staff to supporting the state's offshore wind goals, working collaboratively with and supporting leadership of tribal nations and addressing the effects. Do you need to get that? Of and advancing tribal interest in offshore wind development. Direct staff to recognize that the County of Humboldt is taking the lead in working with multiple stakeholders. And to date, the district has worked with a whole suite of stakeholders. I'm not going to go over every one of these, but this is an ongoing effort and constantly evolving list. Picking up from there, the resolution acknowledges that offshore wind will have unavoidable impacts on regional fisheries, including tribal fisheries, and directs the district to continue to collaboratively work with those affected parties. It also recognizes that many stakeholders and residents will be directly and indirectly affected by offshore wind in our region, and it requires us to engage in sustained outreach. Continuing from there, working requires us to work with partners to establish and support sustainable workforce development pathways, to partner for a regional vision and roadmap. Number 8 there is to direct staff directly to work with stakeholders, including tribes and fishermen, collaborate regarding community benefits, workforce development, regional vision roadmap, work with the county to draft a memorandum of understanding, which will be coming before you in an upcoming meeting, assist with planning and advancing onshore infrastructure upgrades. So that's just a background, or more or less a summary of what the resolution calls for. As a reminder of the purpose of the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation Conservation District, it's all related to community benefits, the purpose of this organization. So the Harbor's Navigation Code of California established the Humboldt Bay Harbor District through the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation Conservation District Act, which this is that's the cover page of, and this here, Article 2 of that act identifies the powers and duties of the Harbor District. And if we zoom in on this, the district is directed, or we're created to improve Humboldt Bay Harbor for navigation and commerce through maintenance and construction of channels, shipways, berths, anchorage places, turning basins, breakwaters, bulkheads, wharves, processing plants, warehouses, roads, spur tracks, beltline roadways, etc. Anything deemed necessary that can't be accomplished by other entities. This is the purpose for which we were established. The next page, also our directive, what we were established to do: protect wildlife habitat, establish open spaces, regulate pollution and dredging, and work closely with planning agencies. So as Larry likes to say, we are the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District. We have multiple purposes, but they are all related to community benefits. So anything we do and any revenue we make from this project or any other project all goes towards these community benefits that we were established to accomplish. The wind terminal project itself has a whole suite of anticipated benefits. I'm not going to go over these in detail, but there will be a presentation on our website in the coming weeks that goes into detail about this sort of stuff. So staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution as presented. Do want to let you know that the district received some suggested revisions, and we recommend not adopting those revisions at this time. And one of the primary reasons here is that the county has just started exploring community benefit models. The county is interviewing other wind communities to understand what they've learned about engaging in similar efforts. County is working with advisors to better understand the roles and obligations of CBAs and other activities related to this. Probably most importantly, the county just received and is now administering an $800,000 grant from the state for offshore wind, which includes developing a model for civic engagement. And so this is just beginning, and there's a lot to be learned from that process. County is also conducting a comprehensive stakeholder analysis of each of the entities, communities, and agencies involved, impacted by and advocating for port development and offshore wind. So until the above is further underway, it's too early to make additional binding commitments to the district. And so staff recommends adopting that resolution as presented.
Thanks, Rob. Is Patrick back yet? They may not have power. He's on there?
You might not be able to hear us.
Pat,
Do
can
we
you?
want to?
Yeah, you should be cell phone.
Oh, he's chatting. Just put something in the chat. Tell him that.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Greg, I'm back. I keep having power outages and then I get back in and then I'm kind of in limbo with no video, no audio. But I've been monitoring. I'm here. So move.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
What is the motion? I mean, I think. Accept the resolution, accept the staff recommendation. Is that your resolution, your motion, Pat?
Yeah, it's to approve the recommended language that talks about, how we're going to help with community benefits. And it's interim, but it's in sync with the county and I'm in favor of it. And so I'm moving what the staff recommended and looking for a second.
Do I have a motion?
I will second the motion.
And I have a second. And now we'll discuss. Aaron, would you like to start? I don't know why I always start down there at that end, but I do.
I'm gonna move down there.
Nobody gets appointed to committees on that end either.
I'm really looking forward to hearing from the public on this. And I've been engaged as a commercial fisherman with some of the activities and met with a lot of folks. And yeah, I want to kind of see what, to me, any real action beyond what's in the county's resolution it's too early. The situation is developing and I don't want to see us become encumbered as Rob expressed. So that's all for me for this go around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stephen, would you like to go next?
Sure. I mean, I think that was a very good presentation and I wholeheartedly agree that this project has potential to be that this project is a community benefit in and of itself beyond anything that has to be tacked onto it. I also recognize that there are definite issues and impacts that are going to happen because of this project that need to be addressed. And I think this resolution is a step towards memorializing this. I read with interest some of the suggestions that came to us last night on this. And I don't know if we want to go through all the commissioner statements first, but I would like to hear staff's opinion on one of the recommendations or a theme of the recommendations that seem to come up to mention a specific project and specific developer by name within the resolution. So I'd like to hear staff's views on that. And then I'd say one of the other recommendations that came from the Core Hub was to slightly edit the language that described the Core Hub, which I have less issue with that. I mean, I think that, if the Core Hub wants to be described in a certain way, I would be open to that. But I'd like to just hear what like the pros and cons are about mentioning a specific developer and specific projects. I don't know. We should ask staff to do that now, or if we want to go through.
No, why don't you- let's let staff do that.
Let me start and then you can add in is that, well, I think, when I was reading we got these comments, I got them this morning. And when I read over these, the comments, the first whereas that I was looking at, the resolution that's included in the packet it's really is more generic. It's looking at offshore wind as a whole. And when I'm looking at the comments, it seems like the comments are saying they think our resolution should be focused on the terminal, the wind terminal. And so when the resolution is put together, it's put together within the context of, as Rob pointed out in his presentation, the overall offshore wind, which includes the different facets, the offshore wind offshore, the port infrastructure, the transmission, the workforce development, and all of the different aspects as a whole. And it was put together this way because we feel like you have to look at it as in totality if you're going to look at community benefits, and that you shouldn't start with looking at just the terminal, and it should be looked at as a whole. And so that was kind of the first comment when I was looking at this. It seemed like they were asking us to replace what we were looking at is more the generic use of offshore wind, and instead really focusing on defining wind terminal. And that's really not the purpose of this, the way that we were presenting this. And it's not the way the county's resolution was set up either.
And there'd probably be, even additional offshore wind activities happening around the bay that are within our jurisdiction in addition to the terminal.
Yep,
Almost definitely.
I concur. This resolution is not about our terminal, right? It's about offshore wind in general, which is affected by a suite of different projects, trying to get back to where I was. So you've got the, master plan overall, just what could happen in Humboldt Bay and the evaluation of the potential there. Ultimately, you got transmission, you've got our project, and then you've got 2 offshore wind projects there. And there's likely more. And so this resolution is more about the district's commitment in the big picture on a suite of multiple projects.
And I'll reserve my right to speak
Please.
again later.
Please.
What I have for now.
Commissioner Benson.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about this, and we're going to be working on this for the whole 4 years of my appointment. I'm sure this is going to be a regular topic of discussion, and I'm hearing you, Larry, that this is like the mission statement. It's the spine, and the ribs are coming and need to be defined. But there's interest in the community at early on to get as specific as we can, so that what it feels like for a lot of community members is this is happening to us. This is something that has federal involvement, state involvement, county and local involvement, and we want to be ahead of it. So it's not done to us, that we empower our community to be self-directed and to have as much impact in terms of what Rob is talking about with community benefit, agreements. And so I see why there's interest in getting more specificity into this resolution. And so I think we'll get some level of specificity into it. We're being asked to to look at this as a general statement of intent and mission and kind of the first laying of the pavement, but without all of the details yet. And then there will be future resolutions. So I encourage the public to see it that way. That said, there's a few things that I would like to see added in some of the whereases that I think are important. I appreciated the recommendations from Core Hub that have already been incorporated into it. But it seems to me that just even looking at the first whereas around offshore energy, it seems to, my understanding is that it's not just the offshore energy. A big piece of this are the attendant to terrestrial transmission lines, and somehow I don't see that language in here anywhere. It's such a big piece, and somehow if we're putting weight and authority and interest behind what gets developed around this, I think it might be worthwhile for us to consider adding, whereas offshore energy and attendant terrestrial transmission development are part of a crucial strategy. Might just be good to get that in there. It's a small thing. Down to the fifth whereas and kind of throughout, this resolution is really inclusive. I mean, I appreciate that it has all of the principles of JEDI and justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we name tribal nations, and we name the BIPOC community. Somehow, and underrepresented communities, and I think what we've sort of lost in that, and I'm fully supportive of all that, but I think we've lost low-income white folk who live in around the shoreline of Humboldt Bay. Somehow in our desire to be inclusive, we sort of left out a big majority interest group, in this. And so, it just seems that tribal nations up and underrepresented communities add and low income communities. I would just like to see that throughout so that people in King Salmon and Fairhaven and other places, also feel that we're talking about them and including them, as well. The words, I don't want to get too PC on you, but the word stakeholder is one that a lot of quarters, because of JEDI, are taking that out of the lexicon. Because for a lot of indigenous people, to be a stakeholder really goes back to historic times when the federal government gave basically colonizers states to take resource. And so what I hear more, it's a little bit more, is interested parties and affected communities. IPAC would be the interested parties and affected communities. That kind of creates kind of your primary, not to use that word again, but stakeholders, and then your secondary and tertiary stakeholders as interested parties and affected communities. Just something we might want to consider. I'm not going to not vote for this because that's not in there, but it's something we might want to consider as we move forward. And yeah, those are just a couple of little detail things that just stuck out in my mind tonight or when previewing this. That's all I have for now, but we want to speak again as after we hear from the public.
Thanks, Greg. Commissioner Higgins, are you still there?
I am still here and I will lower my hand, Greg. I'm learning Zoom. That was a very, very eloquent and nuanced kind of stream of ideas from our new commissioner. And I am so glad that you have joined us on the dais, because those kinds of pronouncements both express the wishes of the district and kind of the package that you bring, Craig. So it's cool, man. And this, though, is a work in progress. And so the Harbor District is facilitating this. Our staff is making it happen. The powers that be are aligning to where we can be a conduit. Crowley is not the big fish. The big fish is offshore. They're the people with the money. So we can't obligate anything. I mean, we're paying our bills now, but we are not a benefactor, and we do not have the ability to kind of distribute largesse. That's not at our discretion. I thought that Rob eloquently expressed that everything we do serves the public. So we are sympathetic and we are supportive, and this is ongoing. But this is just the beginning, and I'm really glad the community's tuned in. The community needs to get what it needs out of this. But it's a long process, and for us to commit early on things that we're unable to deliver, and then to let the larger entities to come later, everybody's punched out and they think they got what, so when the people with the $320 million that they laid down, those are the people that can get 10% rebated if they meet your needs. So this game is long, and it's hard to maintain interest that long, but it's essential because we can't determine these things now, and the people with the money will come later. So we want to hold interest, continue to organize. And I think everything that's been fed to us has relevance and substance. And I'm in favor of it. But I think for the nonce for this evening, that if we work with the current resolution, we have something on the record, and then we move forward from there. So thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Pat. Well, I think we all feel similarly within some nuances. I for one am not a huge fan of resolutions like this. I think if you can't put enough whereases on one page, that you shouldn't have a damn resolution. But that's my personal feeling. And they have no power, no teeth, no nothing. It basically gives you an idea of what what we kind of think we'd like to do. But there's no power in a resolution, and that's for me a waste of time sometimes. I'm really not into wordsmithing a resolution. I will do it as we see fit, whatever the board decides to do. But I think the resolution pretty much says what we want it to say. I don't have a problem changing any of it, and we'll leave it up to the board.
You know, Greg, someone spoke early to the fact that the folks who are trying to frame this wanted to kind of change the language that describes their collaboration. And as the maker of the motion, I'd be open to that. I think more elaborate changes, like you said, are not necessarily productive. This is symbolic. But you know, we can make that gesture because those folks are invested in obviously tracking. So I would entertain a friendly amendment if the person who seconded would also accept it to change the language. I can't remember the collaborative, I think is their broad umbrella.
I would suggest we just stick with the motion on the floor now until we hear from the public and bring it back and see what other changes might before we.
Thank you. Gotcha.
Multiple amendments. If I may I say one more thing before
Yes, you
to
may.
the public? I just, you know, and maybe this is as much from my understanding of community benefits as anyone else, so maybe I'm just speaking to myself, but I mean, a lot of times when I hear community benefits, the immediate thought is some big developer writing a check to somebody and essentially paying them off. And I think, you know, we thinking of the community benefits of things that we can put in here that are mitigations to some of the impacts and making sure that the development occurs in a way that has most benefit to Humboldt County instead of a big funnel of money going someplace else. And so that, as I see community benefits in this project, is making sure that we're all really careful because there's, you know, there's obviously some very wealthy, savvy companies coming to Humboldt who are going to try and make as much money as possible. And so we want to make sure that there is as much benefit to our community as possible. And that's where I see it, but not just like they would probably much rather do business as usual and just cut somebody a check to get away with whatever they want to do. And that's not what I think we want to see.
I would agree with that. Any other comments from the board? I'm going to take it to the public. There's a whole bunch of people here who want to talk about it. Anybody, please approach the podium. The microphone does not.
Go down.
Well, you know, it goes down. It doesn't
Amplify.
amplify in the room. It's just for the recording.
Okay, I'll try and speak up.
Oh, you're fine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Bixler, and I work for Redwood Community Action Agency. And I'm here in support of the Community Benefits Network recommended amendments to the resolution concerning offshore wind development. RCAA, my nonprofit, has been providing organizational support to the Peninsula Community Collaborative since 2015. The collaborative is made up of residents from Samoa, Fairhaven, Manila, and Fintown who meet regularly to share ideas, develop solutions, and implement plans to improve the Samoa Peninsula's well-being. And these frontline communities will be directly impacted by offshore wind and the heavy lift terminal development. On average, 20 PCC members meet regularly to attend our monthly meetings to hear about wind updates and discuss opportunities for community benefit agreements. And there is strong support for community benefit agreements. Several PCC members are here tonight, and some will speak to support the suggested recommended amendments. And just to highlight one of them, I mean, you have them in front of you, but we want the Harbor District to participate in good faith towards negotiating legally binding community benefit agreements in the wind terminal development projects with parties that might be interested in doing so as part of the lease and development agreement between Crowley Wind and the Harbor District. And the PCC, I mean, we understand that the Harbor District cares about community benefits. You know, they understand that you're committed to it, but we see this more as an opportunity to work together. If the PCC, I mean, they're already organized to be able to implement projects. So if we had some of those funds, and I understand that it can't be a lot because, you're not big offshore wind developers, but if we had some of those funds, we could implement mitigation projects together to get things done more effectively because, these people living right next to the terminal development, it is going to impact their life. And it's going to be really significant for them. So any way that we can work collaboratively together to mitigate those impacts, I think is something worth pursuing. So thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay. Oh, yeah, no, I can turn that my way so I can see that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
My name is Nancy Ihara and I live in Manila. And I'm not good at revising my notes and I am in my head a little bit. I know initially when this came up, I was remembering when we went to a presentation by somebody from Crowley and we asked him about community benefits and he said, oh, that wasn't their responsibility, that it was the Harbor District. So I know that's partly where I'm coming from, that was the information that was given us, so at that time. So I essentially have said that in my notes that I would support adopting Resolution 2023-05 with the suggested amendments submitted by the Climate and Community Resilience Hub because of the benefits that it would provide to communities. And I really like the enforcement provisions to ensure that the agreement is upheld and that the benefits are received by those who need them the most. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience. As you know, it's sadly divided by Expressway 255, and residents often elected, especially across this road that on foot or by bike to visit their neighbors who enjoy the amenities on the other side of the flat in which they live. Just walking near the intersections when a car passed speeding on the highway. And I mention this because undoubtedly 255 was constructed primarily to accommodate the previous dominant industry in Humboldt many years ago, but of lumber. Agreements such as those requiring community benefits did not exist in the 60s. Had they existed and were they implemented, the impact of 255 on Manila would have been taken into consideration and from my understanding of what community benefit agreements are, and in all likelihood would have mitigated the impacts to some extent. So the heavy lift marine terminal will, of course, also have impacts on the communities surrounding them. And by requiring a community benefits agreement, the Harbor District, if that is something you can do, can ensure that these communities and groups are consulted and listened to, and that as much as possible, their needs and concerns taken into account and mitigated. I understand it's not your money, but hopefully you can help make it happen.
Thanks, Nancy.
Step right up.
I'm Carla Osborne and I also live in Manila. And I was here last month and brought up, when we first were talking about this, and I feel like you all kind of made a big effort to tell us to kind of cool our jets, basically. And but then Craig, thank you very much for your comments. And Stephen, I think what we just want to do is, as you guys said, just get in on the front end as opposed to coming in after all these decisions are made. And, every little thing that happens on the peninsula affects all of us. And we are all concerned and want to make sure that
just quality of life isn't degraded by massive increase of traffic through our community and, you know, pollution of the water, whatever kinds of things we can kind of see maybe coming. I know that you guys will be really on top of that. That's not probably something that most of us are concerned about at this point is the pollution, but the eelgrass and the harbor seal nesting and all of those things are just things that we want to take into consideration whenever any of these kinds of big projects come, and fishing. And anyway, we'll continue to come to your meetings and bug you about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Next, please.
We should have assigned you all numbers, so you wouldn't have to just look at each other. Decide who does next.
Always going the efficient route, Commissioner Coleman. Oh, so I have an issue with the non-binding part and I don't exactly have all the answers to what a binding situation would look like and exactly what those asks or demands, if you will, would be. But I agree. It feels a little bit more like lip service that could or could be agreed to or not. And so that's a problem for me. I like that a lot of things in this resolution, minimizing and mitigating impacts when and where possible. Well, I think identifying those, minimizing them, mitigating them, and those can all be things that can be shared by the community. And I feel like developers and Crowley and them as well on the terrestrial side can be part of paying for that. And that, they be part of our agreements that say, hey, you all need to be responsible for these things. And along those lines, at some point in time, this technology is going to be by the wayside, like our dams are on the Klamath River. And so who's going to pay for removing that? Who's going to clean that up? I think all of those things can be things that we could be proactive about. And I think it's exactly why our community is so engaged in this at this early level. And why we want these strong binding agreements coming out of the gate as best as possible. As much as we can to assure that this is a local thing, that our local people are being the ones who are the employed for these opportunities and these works. Where we are lacking, okay, well, let's beef up. Developers, help us. BOEM, help us, help this community beef up all those areas to where College of the Redwoods, Cal Poly Humboldt can all be part of growing our own, like we do here in Humboldt, grow our own professionals as well. I like hearing that other people in the audience are here, like, hey, we're still here and we want to make sure you're aware of that. And our local people are poised and ready to be the workforce to do this. And that these developers are investing in that workforce. See, I got a couple other notes here. And I don't want to see business as usual either. I want to see business unusual. I don't want to see another boom bust opportunity. And I do disagree. I agree that these developers have deep pockets, but I also agree that Crowley has deep pockets, and they're going to be involved in every phase of things with their supply line. So I absolutely see them as also deep pockets. So
your time's up, Marcus. If you could wrap it up. You're good.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Wrapped.
You're very well spoken. Thank you.
That was 3 minutes.
I know, it went by really quick. I thought you did.
Timed it too. I
Yeah,
saw you.
no, he had the timer. He's got the timer. You don't want me timing anything. I can't even read a watch.
Okay, which hand, the big hands on?
Yeah. Please step up to the microphone and
All right.
Hello, esteemed commissioners and wonderful staff of the Harbor District. I'm Amy Jester. I work with the Redwood Region Climate and Community Resilience Hub. And I'm here tonight to express our support for the offshore wind development resolution that is on your agenda tonight. And to appreciate the Harbor District's partnership approach to development of the offshore wind industry cluster. I do think that it's important that the statement has been made that is broad and generally supportive of paying attention to focusing in on the industry cluster as a whole. It's so important that we have our eye on how all of these different pieces fit together, because one doesn't work without the rest. So I appreciate that there's that like ecosystem approach to the resolution and that you're supporting it in that way. Given the Harbor District's jurisdiction over the heavy lift marine terminal, which we noted in our comments, but also other projects, that's where we were coming from in recommending that the resolution be amended to include reference to the projects that are under the district's jurisdiction. Which could still be somewhat generalized. We made some specific recommendations, but I think they could be made more general. Related to really recommending amendments that note that the Harbor District will incorporate community benefit terms into key legal agreements for projects that are under the Harbor District's jurisdiction. I think to your point, Commissioner Coleman, I absolutely agree that that it's not just simply about community benefit agreements in and of themselves that are, monetary, but the different operational commitments are, I think we with the Climate and Community Resilience Hub really are coming from a very similar and aligned perspective on that it's a both and, that there are operational commitments to what some of the other folks have shared, and there is an investment piece too. So with that, I'll just say we appreciate that you all have put this on your agenda, do support the resolution, of course, with the amendments that we recommended, but did, also just want to say that we thank you for your leadership and all that you're doing to facilitate this process to transition our communities in a way that's really going to help this place to thrive for generations to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Hi, I'm Robin Gray Stewart, the Marine Chair of the local Sierra Club. And I want to say thank you to all of you commissioners for the wonderful job that you're doing to support the offshore wind farm. And I know you put a lot of time and effort into this, and I really appreciate the work that you did on this beginning resolution, and understand it's just a beginning or a start. And I wanted to say that we also are really celebrating the effort that Core Hub is putting into trying to bring our community together for a community benefits package, and looking at all the different people in our community that will be affected by this. And also that as you get more specific on resolutions, I have been very excited by some of the comments that this group has made about making Humboldt Bay into a green port, and maybe even making us a model for other ports. And I would love to see more about that. I want to thank you again for just all the time and effort you've put into this. Just love coming to your meetings and hearing all the things that you guys say.
Thank you, Robin. Please feel free to step up to the microphone. Mr. Scott.
Hey, you promised you had some comments on that.
So I'm in a position where I am commenting under public comment, but I'm also here representing a partner agency who is collaborating with the Harbor District on some of these activities and initiatives. And I could probably also be available to answer some specific questions about the county's strategies and how it foresees that relationship with the Harbor District will look like. So I'll start.
Can you identify yourself? Can you identify yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Scott Adair, Director of Economic Development for the County of Humboldt. So I'll start with my public comment. If you do have any other questions about the county's activities, I'm happy to answer those. A wise mentor once taught me that it's a lot less painful to learn from other people's mistakes than it is to learn from your own mistakes. That's why our agency has been engaged in meaningful dialogue and conversation with the communities in this country and abroad who have gone through this very same exercise, to talk to them about the pain points that they went through and the lessons that they learned. Our advice has been very consistent in that as a community, we should not sacrifice project efficacy, nor the true positive impact that the project can bring to the community for the sake of producing immediate results. We have been advised time and again by other communities that offshore wind is a very lengthy process, that there are many years of studies and analyses and research which has to be completed, and that slowing down to ensure that the project is done correctly, that there is procedural justice and distributive justice around giving a voice to those civic bodies and community members who would be impacted, whether adversely or positively, have an opportunity to participate. To put it in a metaphorical context, even a skilled and experienced and highly educated surgeon would be very nervous about rushing through a medical procedure. We are not skilled or experienced or knowledgeable at offshore wind. We are still students of offshore wind. We're still learning. And that is what the county is trying to accomplish and achieve with its $851,000 grant and the activities that it will pursue in order to bring better transparency and opportunity for public engagement around offshore wind. I can tell you that the resolution, or the power of the resolution that the Board of Supervisors passed, actually was instrumental in our agency being able to secure this funding. Federal and state agencies love to see partnerships, especially at the local level. It would have been difficult for us to get the $851,000 without that resolution that our board passed. And whereas it is difficult to get 5 board members or elected officials to agree to something, 5 board members have been very decidedly in agreement about partnership and collaboration with this agency and this body between the county and the Harbor District on offshore wind activity, as well as involving the city of Eureka, because it is those 3 agencies from a geographical perspective who will have the most authority and purview over the project. So on March 14th, staff is bringing an MOU recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to develop better specificity around the relationship between the county and the city and the Harbor District and what those specific activities might look like. We'll be seeking direction from the Board of Supervisors to engage collaboratively with your commission through some interaction between our Workforce Development Board, Ad Hoc Wind Committee, and other board members to develop a roadmap for what that might look like. I can tell you that what keeps the county up at night, what concerns us as staff, is that we don't have any high degree of confidence that any individual in this county can specifically state every family, entity, community, agency, nonprofit, business, neighborhood, community of culture, community of shared interest, community of shared space, etc., who would be positively or negatively impacted by offshore wind, and or to what degree that impact would be. This is why, until the county fully understands the broader impacts of the project, the county, while supporting efforts related to CBA discussions and community engagement and organizing around community benefits, the county is not committing firmly to any community benefit action until it fully understands the problems for which we are trying to develop solutions. So what is the county going to do with the $851,500? And I'm surprised the state didn't add some change onto that. Whereas the final sale notice from BOEM does give some general guidance concerning what the developers are going to be obligated for, the true meat of what is holding the developers accountable is codified in federal code, Title 30, Chapter 5, Subchapter B. For offshore wind, if anyone's interested, where there is extensive federal regulation requiring what the developers will be held accountable for and what they must submit to BOEM before their projects can begin. We're hoping to work with the developers, with Crowley, other local businesses and supply chain partners to better understand the workforce needs and supply chain needs. But I'm not talking about a list of standard occupation codes or classifications. NREAL and other, CEC, NREAL, BOEM, other agencies have put together exhaustive reports already on what those workforce needs look like. What we're looking to identify is understand at a localized community level exactly what the gaps are, what the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats are for this project, how it will both positively and negatively impact some communities or industries, and how we can sequence the work and identify secondary and tertiary impacts, and also seek to understand the psychographic needs of the worker so that we understand what it takes to maintain and keep a quality of life and a quality of place, to develop quality for that worker and that laborer in their work environment. We'll be doing the same with supply chain, and working to better understand at a localized level what the supply chain needs are. Again, not leaning into work which has already been completed at a federal and state level, but identifying that we have less than 2,500 trade skill workers or trade workers, construction workers in Humboldt County, most of those belonging to 3 to 5 person shops, agencies or businesses who do not have necessarily the financial wherewithal or the gravitas to advocate for themselves in a setting like this. And finally, we will be using the funding to do a very deep dive stakeholder analysis. And this comes at the recommendation of those other communities that we've talked to. That stakeholder analysis is more than just who the entities are and what their role is in offshore wind. It includes what their mission is, whom do they serve, who do they represent, how are they funded, are they a transparent organization, how can the civic or how can the public or the community engage with them. All of these reports and analyses will be made public. The county's role and responsibility and fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer is to help create transparency around this process. So when these studies are complete, we will share them with everyone. And we're hoping that those studies will make it easier for the community as a whole and collectively to truly understand what needs to be done to work together for community benefits agreements, project labor agreements, et cetera. I can just end with the county's commitment to firmly work with all of our partners, whether it's our merit shop, open shop partners who are feeling unrepresented in this process, or it's our union partners who have been very engaged in the process, Core Hub, other communities of place and of interest, and with our partner agencies like the Harbor District and the city and others. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Scott. That was a long 3 minutes.
We gave
But
you 3 minutes for each task.
He never stopped. I swear to God, he was breathing through his eyelids. He didn't even take a breath. Thank you. And thanks for your assistance all the way through this whole process. Anyone else care to speak?
Don't worry, Greg, I brought writing this time. So
Oh, yeah, you're
I
good.
won't take anybody off this time.
Oh,
It was
you,
a little rough last time, I was told.
by who? Not by
I'll
me.
keep that between you and me.
Okay.
I'm Jake McMaster for Commissioner Benson. As you know me, my family's had a boat here for almost 30 years. First ran by my father and now me. I'm also a member of the Humboldt Offshore Wind Advisory Panel that the Harbor District asked to set up, made up 6 fishermen. One of them is here, Tom Fulkerson. We drew the 2 short straws. And I'm just going to read what we have to say and go from there. I would like to start off by saying that I think it's a good thing the district is considering adopting a resolution like the one is being proposed. There's been a lot of talk from local agencies and various groups that benefits and community benefit packages. Well, I truly hope that offshore wind turns out to be a net benefit for the community as a whole. I'd like to remind the commissioners, the commercial fishing fleet as an industry, which is made up of hundreds of community and tribal members, will see no benefits from offshore wind, only impacts. Some of these impacts will be devastating to this fleet. I cannot stress enough how important it is for the district to help ensure these impacts are mitigated to the fullest extent possible, and that protecting the small and standing industry must be a top list priority. That's it. Hope I didn't offend anybody this time.
Nope, you're good, Jake.
Good. And I'm going home.
Have a good evening. Anyone else care to comment? Please step up. If not, I'm gonna bring it back to the board.
Greg.
I have a few things to say, but it sounds like Pat, you have something to say? You're usually so quiet.
I do. I
I
just want
do.
to
I-
commend the public.
just want-
I mean, I missed the public during COVID. And the expression of public sentiment this evening is eloquent. They took the effort to come into the hall. I would have been there, except I have other business. And I really appreciate the comments of everybody. I thought that they were of extraordinarily high caliber. And I'm into community benefits. So thank you for letting me commend the public for participating. And you know, organizing is not about showing up one night. It's like sticking with it. I'm going to make a joke that's not dismissive or talking down to you, but it's like Chihuahuas on a cuff. If there's a couple of thousand, you're going to get what you need. And the people of this community need to track this, and they need to get what they need. And we want to help facilitate that, but we have a limit to our power. But I think what we're doing this evening is an important gesture.
Thanks, Patrick. Commissioner Benson.
Yeah, I go back to my childhood and the bumper stickers that were out, think globally and act locally, right? And this is a project that does that. We're thinking about the world's needs and climate change and global warming and looking for clean energy and we've already had some pretty good dances with wind energy and NIMBYism in Humboldt County, on Monument Ridge and elsewhere. And this, it seems like, impacts to birds are maybe slightly less and putting it way out to sea, et cetera, et cetera. Seems like there's big opportunities for us, but there's also, long-term concerns, about a project of this scope. And I love the ideas expressed tonight by the public about Greenport and, business as unusual instead of usual. It's, I think that in the acting locally, we have this opportunity as a pilot project for wind energy in California. Yes, it's been done internationally, especially in the North Sea and by mostly European companies. But we are also inviting companies that have corporate interest rather than local interest. And if we're going to sleep with corporations, we need to make sure that we're getting a good deal out of it, as best of a deal as possible. But I also don't want a resolution that's so uninviting that it seems that we're building a brick wall in the middle of the bed, endeavoring to sleep in. But I think we have to send the message that we're not cheap or easy either, that there's been that we're expecting a lot, out of this to the degree of that we have the power to request it. And I think I think that this early resolution is on the right track. I support it. I would support it more with a little bit more attendant language, starting to spell out a few more things, some of the things that I've already said. I can see some people reading this and saying, like College of the Redwoods that Mr. Lennox spoke of. Why is Cal Poly Humboldt on the list and not really mostly our vocational education institution of CR? If we're trying to build workforce, it seems like that's, there's just a few little things. We can't put everybody on the list, otherwise we have a 3-page list as a whereas. But
You already got 5.
Yeah, but I think we can do a little bit better. I would support, I don't see this as so time sensitive that at the special meeting that we're already planning on at the end of March, that we couldn't have just a slightly augmented version of this that just catches a little bit more. I'm not gonna try to stop this tonight, but I would support it more with I think just a little bit more teeth in it. But I also want to, but I also realize that this isn't the kind of a resolution that has the teeth, and it's not intended to have the teeth. We have teeth when we create contracts and we create leases. That's where the rubber meets the road for us, and I also get that. So I'm still learning now, but that's sort of my initial thoughts on this.
Talk good, shall I? So yeah, very much appreciate public coming out here tonight. It's great to see this engagement on this, and it's you know, it's sometimes easy sitting up here to want to move things around because, you know, or move things along because we have so much to do. But it is very important to get it right. So I appreciate the input and the continued engagement that will happen. I also, you know, like to remind myself, you know, what it is we are actually doing at any given time. And so, and this is a resolution. Nobody else will be signing this resolution. Crawley, any of the wind developers in the ocean, you know, anybody doing transmission line. So this is in a, you know, in a sense, it is meaningful. It captures our intention and memorializes our intention right now. This even if we put language that says legally binding, if we write the words legally binding in here, this resolution is not legally binding. It is, and it's certainly not legally binding for anyone else who's not a party to it. So this resolution is, though, I think a great step towards identifying our goals towards ensuring the greatest community benefits for the projects that we are going to have authority over. I don't support mentioning any specific project in here. I'm mentioning Crawley specifically, especially since Crawley's not a signatory to this resolution. And, you know, they have nothing to do with it. So I don't necessarily think that it would make sense to be in there. There's going to be this is California. There is going to be an extremely robust permitting phase for this. Everything is going to have a lot of community engagement, a lot of different people looking at different impacts and mitigations for every single step of the way of this project, other projects. But I would support, you know, trying to get this right, and I really appreciate what Commissioner Benson had to say about the, you know, even the term stakeholders. I would support making some small edits on that. I would support adopting the language that Core Hub wants to describe themselves. I mean, that only makes sense if they have language that how they want to be described, seems to adopt it. But I would like to essentially pass this otherwise as written to capture our intention at this time. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be trying to do these other things, but I don't believe, you know, and I might be wrong, it's happened once or twice before, but I don't believe that that is the place, that this resolution is the place for some of this language. I think that is, you know, still coming.
So Stephen,
That's my.
can we be specific in terms of what you want, in terms of the amendment resolution? It's the group's description of themselves, and Craig made some points, but now for us to nail this down tonight so that what you agree of is a very important gesture going forward. What specifically, how specifically would we change this motion?
I think language is, you know, important. I wouldn't even call it a gesture. So I would support changing in the last whereas of the first page, changing the word stakeholders to interested parties and affected communities. Unless we want to say stakeholder, all three, but
No, that sounded good.
Language?
I was buying that.
Maybe define it once and then use IPAC instead of stakeholder, just do a word search and replace every time you have stakeholder. I would like to see added attendance, terrestrial transmission, you know, in the first.
Offshore wind energy development. How about just attended projects? Or an intended development, not specifically terrestrial or other.
I really, that one, I mean, specifically, I just think it's the 900-pound gorilla and we can produce all this energy. How are we gonna move it? I think it's the bacon to the eggs.
That's probably gonna come from the state. So it's a kind of a different kind of money than the money that's going to come from the private developers, and there's specific things that say that they can spend 10 to 20% in terms of the BOEM candidates. Whereas when you go on land in the state, if the state ends up paying for the infrastructure, which it should, then it's a different case in terms of what we can get out of it. Sorry, Craig.
Thanks, Pat.
I don't see this as, there's no money in this resolution.
No,
I
or
don't see- I don't see
specific
money in this
project.
resolution.
This is a general statement that is our general idea and thought process. Putting specifics like the transmission issue in here, I don't think that matters. I mean, I think for me, this covers that, okay, that concept. It's an industry that we need all of that. Not only that, we need substations. There's a multitude of things that we're leaving out. If we wanted to get specific about things, I don't have a problem taking stakeholders out. I think let's keep ourselves a little bit modern. The county probably is doing that as we speak. I have no problem. But as far as wordsmithing a lot of this to get, I mean, the idea is we are putting forth a resolution concerning the development of offshore wind. There's really nothing in any of these comments that changes our resolute position to support offshore wind and to do it with a good community benefit package. I mean, if we start wordsmithing this, we'll be here for a month.
Would you allow me to make
No,
a friendly amendment to Pat's motion?
yes.
So,
It's not up to me, it's up to you.
I'm just being polite.
Yeah.
Greg, give him a
Well,
shot.
one second.
I'm
already
in a
said-
mood to make a friendly amendment. Steven, spit
So
it out.
I would say adopting as written with the edit to the word stakeholders. At its first instance to interested parties and affected communities.
And throughout.
And then throughout with the acronym of that. And then to replace this, I believe if I counted correctly, it is the seventh whereas describing the core network. With the suggested language.
I'll take those as friendly amendments on their face right now. Who seconded? Are they with it?
That's all I have.
Two more things and you've
yeah.
got my full support.
Okay, Craig.
We can, I know it's
Go.
wordsmithing, but.
No, that's
I gotta
fine.
do it.
So the seventh whereas that starts whereas the core network represent a diverse group of tribal nations. Replacing that, you have this document in there. So whereas the core hub and broader North Coast offshore wind community ...
Okay, I'm happy with changing to taking out attendant terrestrial transmission and just saying attendant projects. Where that's in the first whereas. Offshore wind energy and attendant projects is a crucial strategy.
So whereas offshore wind development is crucial strategy to address global climate change and to meet the state and federal administration's ambitious climate and renewable energy targets and.
No, the and goes up earlier,
Yeah,
so
it's earlier. Offshore wind energy and attendant project development is a crucial strategy. Just so it's more than just offshore wind. And then.
I support that, sure.
Okay,
And then just in general with, when we say tribal nations, underrepresented communities, we include low income. That's in fifth. And I think seventh, it's fifth and sixth, seventh, eighth. Whereas.
So just adding the words and low
Low
income.
income, when we say tribal nations, Black, Indigenous communities of color, et cetera, just add low income communities to that and.
underrepresented and low income communities.
Yes.
Okay.
And the last, and then I gotta do a shout out for College of the Redwoods, Cal Poly Humboldt and College of the Redwoods.
Okay,
As our vocational.
That's all constructive.
Yep.
Who seconded?
I agree.
There we go.
Yeah, and I second take those, if the.
And hopefully that's not too
Good
much
job. Good to see
work.
hard work.
I've
Well
got
thought
it.
out.
Track changes now. 15 stakeholders that'll be replaced.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's just the world we live in today.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thanks for doing it in a hurry and making it happen. So we have a revised resolution. And it's hard to put 5 pages on the wall. Resolutions are meant to go on a wall somewhere. So we've wordsmithed it. I'm bringing it back to the board for a vote. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Higgins,
Yeah,
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
and President Dale.
Yes.
Good job.
All right.
But we look forward to continuing to work with the whole community and all of you.
And I want to say something to Carla. You know, we've been meeting with with some of the public utilities that service the peninsula. And there's a whole lot of work and thought amongst all the elected boards that are participating in this: water, power, sewage, roads. And they're all looking at this. So I think there's going to be a lot of work on residents of the peninsula to make sure that their needs are met on that. I wrote that down. I want to make sure that you knew that. And I'm sure that Larry and Rob can keep you appraised of those sorts of meetings, and we can too. You'll see it here, but they're going to need similar oversight. Yes. All right, Larry. Moving on to the budget. Yeah. Whoa. You got to stay for the budget. You don't just get to sit here and cherry pick the good stuff. My God.
Just getting warmed up.
Consumptive and non-consumptive stakeholders through the NDA process.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen nowadays.
Yeah.
Consumptive and non-consumptive stakeholders. I remember that. It just like brought like shivers.
Me too.
I hate resolutions. Just absolutely hate it.
Okay, so here we are at the budget season. And so as we've done in the
And you're on the
past,
budget
is that we're required to have a preliminary budget before July 15th and present the final budget by August 1st is what the schedule is. And so in order to do that, in the past, we have basically either just done this collectively as a group, or have more involvement with the budget subcommittee. And so I believe Commissioner Benson and Commissioner Dale are on the budget
Oh, I
subcommittee.
thought it was him.
I thought it was me, but I'm happy
Okay,
if
Commissioner
no, I'm
Coleman.
happy if it's them.
Commissioner Coleman, and because I think I might have sent you an audit. So I'll make sure that I correct my.
Yeah, we should double check that. We have our minutes, don't we?
Yeah,
But yeah, go on. I'll look. You continue.
Yes, so I have it right.
Don't make it
I have it
Yeah.
bookmarked
Oh, it's-
right
it says
here. Matter of fact,
You and I.
It might be me. I always like being
I
on
might
it,
be
but we
wrong.
haven't met in a long
It
time.
is,
Mindy does a pretty good job.
anyway, I'll refer to Mindy, but I had Coleman crossed off and it was Dale and Benson is what my notes show.
Yeah, I'm
but
fine with that. I'm
could
fine with
be
that.
I could be mistaken.
No, you're correct.
I think we did do that, yeah.
And so, and so really it's up to the budget subcommittee. I submitted 2 alternatives to them. But the plan is on April 13th is to, as we've done in the past, is really to focus on RMT1, RMT2 and Shelter Cove at that meeting. And then on the 11th,
Larry, slow down. Tell Craig what that means.
Redwood Marine Terminal 1,
Okay. Okay.
Redwood Marine Terminal 2 and
No,
Shelter Cove.
we focus on the revenue generation expense of individual sections of the district's responsibility. So Redwood Terminal 1, Redwood Terminal 2, Shelter Cove,
So that would be on the 13th.
and we kind of break it up into pieces.
And then we would come back on the 11th And then if there are questions and things that get brought up on the RMT1, RMT2 Filter Cove, then we can bring those back and try to address those on the 13th. But then we would go in and we would start talking about Woodley Island Marina, Fields Landing Boatyard, and dredging. And as you recall before, we were talking about getting the loan. And so a lot of this with the dredging is going to be on the loan and really getting dredging completed. And so that May meeting is going to be really a critical piece for the district. And then on June 8th, we're looking at port operations, conservation, recreation programs, kind of the administration, those kinds of things. And I forgot to mention on the 11th is that we'll also look at the fee schedule. And if there are adjustments to the fees, such as CPI increases or other little adjustments that we need to do to the fees, we'll be bringing those into this, what is it? Liveaboards? You want to do something with liveaboards? Or
And then we'll meet a week ahead of these dates as a committee to bring.
Or more, yeah.
Yeah,
Are we
yeah.
gonna try to figure that out tonight, or that just be?
No, that would be between the three of us that we could decide that. And so really we have to adopt a preliminary budget and then the final budget, and that gets transmitted to the Board of Supervisors. So all we're really doing tonight is just saying, hey, this is the schedule. Do you guys think this is a good process? Is there anything you want us to change? Those kinds of things, and that we're actively starting to put together the budget now. And, you know, the first step is when we do the budget is we're really kind of looking at what our operational costs are. And because we have everything in QuickBooks, basically the standard process that we have is we take QuickBooks and we have already closed out between July and January. And so we already have the first 7 months. So we kind of do a projection of what would be our normal operational costs. And then that gives us really good numbers on what we're projecting that we're spending on, like inflation for like our utilities and sewer and water and health insurance and all that kind of stuff, which is the normal operational costs. So we feel like we project those out pretty well. And Chris and the maintenance crews are really looking at the facilities budget, the maintenance and the capital improvements and some of these other things that we're working on.
And these are these three meetings, April 13th, May 11th, June 8th, are also they are the meetings that we are they're the preliminary looks for the public at our budget. So we're checking boxes as well.
Yeah, so overall, I mean, I think the budget is going to be tight like it always is, but I think we're starting to see a little bit of wiggle room because of the new market tax credits, because of these additional revenue streams that we're starting to bring in. You know, our goal is I think as a district in the first place is to make sure that we have the adequate cash flow. One of the main things that you're going to hear from staff as a recurring theme is that what has happened is that we have large projects. Large projects mean large expenditures going out all at one time. And so managing cash flow is absolutely paramount and critical for us. And so Mindy and all of the staff, we spend a great deal of time really planning out and doing cash flow to make sure that we're managing these expenditures, because what we're seeing is really hundreds of thousands of dollars going out at a time where it used to be tens of thousands of dollars going. And so, you know, having good cash flow and reserves is really one of these core things. And so, but at the same time, you know, you have to dredge. There's certain things that you absolutely have to do. And that I think we're finally in a spot where we can afford to do that and do it pretty well, I think, this year, especially if we could go in with the city of Eureka. But anyway, I don't want to belabor this. This is kind of a schedule. You know, the intention is to meet with the subcommittee and start hammering this out and come back on April 13th.
Do you need a motion on this, or is this just informational?
Nope, just information.
One request, just because that the fiduciary responsibility of us board members is big, and I know you took out liability insurance on us, and this is where I could get in trouble. is with budgets, right? So what would help me as someone just coming on onboarding is there any way to produce a budget that shows like through the past 3 years, this year plus 2 years back, just so I can see, I mean, I just don't have any perspective on when I just see January of this year, what that means in context to what your operating budget has been for a number of years. It's all on the website. I can just go and look at all that and, but they're not made nicely like year 1, year 2, year 3. There's nothing like that.
I mean,
But
we
you
have the
can maybe
resolution.
share.
Yeah,
sorry.
I can send you the resolutions for the last 3 years.
And the
But
If it's on the website.
The presentation
I
that
think
you
make
did
extra work for you.
Yeah.
for like the past 3 years, I think were really informative. And so I think if you see the presentation. that you
QuickBooks
did-
doesn't do that on, they don't have a. QuickBooks has a way of doing that. We used to do it.
Well, every month we put it in the packet that'll do.
True
this
that.
month or the last month. And
But not the last 3 years.
We could do that. I mean, we could, especially for the subcommittee. I mean, we need to do that. I mean, the full board may not want to see all that.
I don't
can-
need to know all the detail. It doesn't have to be all the detail, but
Yeah. I can easily start with transmitting to you the last 3 budgets. I mean, that we transmitted over to the board of supervisors. You can see that. And it's.
it helps to see well, for me, it always helps to see the budget, the actual for, multiple years. I agree with you. It's nice to see.
Those numbers get progressively bigger over those past 3
Yeah.
years.
But they've been good. I mean, they've stuck to their budget pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, spend money like drunk sailors, but they've stuck to their budget.
Yes, so anyway, that's all I have to say on that. Okay. And we'll get together with a budget.
It's us. We keep giving it to them.
We just don't, yeah. $5,000 at a time. All right, so we don't need a motion on that. What's that? Oh, yes, would anybody from the public like to comment? Mr. Zerling?
No, sir. We didn't have a good job.
All right. We're gonna move.
So, Chris, if you could do the oil spill response.
Make a motion. I'm going to call, consider adopting resolution 2023-04, a resolution accepting funds. And never mind, from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Office of Spill Prevention and Response for oil spill prevention and response equipment. And to authorize the executive director to execute the grant agreement.
So moved. And I'll second.
Doesn't sound like you need a report. I'm good with that.
No, yeah. I mean.
So in our-
we-
In our January 12th meeting, you authorized or you made resolution 2023-02, which authorized the executive director to accept a grant for this very topic. Approximately $10,000 from California Department of Fish and Wildlife, OSPR. Excuse me. So we did that. We executed it, set it in. And in the interim of when they originally offered us the grant, now they changed their rules and they have a very specific format, which superseded the format which we adopted. So we're bringing this back to you mainly for clerical reasons. We're asking you to adopt resolution 2023-04, which is essentially an identical resolution. It just clearly states that the executive director may sign and accept the grant.
Okay. Any comments from the board?
You're able to sign the grant? You're open in on that?
Yep. I'm okay with
All right, then yeah, I'm good with it.
Any comments from the audience? Seeing none. We'll bring it back to the board. We need a roll call on this.
Okay, that was Commissioner Higgins. Okay, Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
and President Dale.
Yes. All right, moving on, authorize, item 11D, authorize the executive director and or board president to review and execute closing documents as part of the Chase Community Capital New Market Tax Credit loan related to the Harbor District and the Humboldt Bay Development Association.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Oh, Is that a motion?
Yes, that is a motion.
Do I have a second?
Close that thing out.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. You want to tell us about it, Larry?
Crystal.
So we are in the process of closing out the new market tax credit agreement. So the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District will be the new fund holder or lender, if you will, to the Development Association, and we can clean those items up in future meetings. But in essence, we've exhausted the requirements of the new market tax credit fund, and it will essentially, upon our action tonight and executing some documents, it'll close tomorrow.
What's that mean?
So that means that we have fulfilled the requirements of the loan, and that debt will, in essence, a portion of it will be forgiven, a portion of it's fully exhausted, because remember, it's an investment fund. And then the remaining amount through a call agreement goes to the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District, and then they make a determination of what they do with the remainder of that. So we thought what we would do is, first off, we need the authorization made here tonight, so we'll need a motion to allow this to occur. We also have a small presentation for you that the Development Association saw earlier today. But this is the Redwood Marine Terminal 2 before the financing. So in March of 2016, there was one active tenant on site. There were 7 active jobs. The bulk of the buildings, if not all, had failed sidings, roof, doors, windows, plumbing, mechanical, electrical systems. The property, for the most part, was filled with the prior occupants' personal property and other things. The property had a scheduled annual revenue of $72,600. So just as a gentle reminder to everybody, here's a little bit of what the property looked like in the past and what it looks like today. This, I guess I could go back for those of you that aren't aware. This is what we call the main warehouse. This is where Taylor Mariculture has their operation, part of their upland. And over here or right here is the loading dock, which On Track uses daily. A little better view of it here. The building was completely clad in a steel siding. So shear panels went on, a steel clad was applied, new roof, new solar system, electrical upgrade to the entire property. As well as new doors and windows, roll-up doors. This is on the left On Track's space. These are opposing views. One looks to the west, the other looks to the east, but you can see what it's like now when you have a fully lit and operational warehouse. This last picture is this is where Nordic Aqua Farms actually has their office right now. This is what we call the Shops and Stores building. And so really in summary, at March of 2023, we now have 18 active tenants as compared to 1. We have 97 active jobs as compared to 7. Pretty notable, the average rate per hour paid to these jobs at this place is $20.87 an hour, and many of these have benefits. That's part of what we have to report for our annual reporting. We didn't dive into that level of detail for this, but if we include Nordic Aqua Farms, our scheduled annual revenue now, $72,600 is $919,262 a year. And we have 75,000 square feet we can still lease for some more upside. So hats off to y'all. This is a pretty successful project.
So what's interesting to me, and I won't belabor this, but there was never 97 people working there when there was an active pulp mill. Richard said there's more people working there today than there was when he worked there. So I don't know if there was more than 97 people, but he said.
Well, there are more than 97 people there for most.
That is probably true. Okay.
So yeah, the new market tax credit, I was before I became the executive director, I was on the nonprofit. The Harbor District appointed me to the board of the Humboldt Bay Development Association, and so we were on the board in the early stages of this when they formed this, and so I've been sort of a part of this as not a staff member of the district, but as a board member of the nonprofit Humboldt Bay Development Association. And, I'll never forget the first time that I went on the property, and really started walking around it before all of these improvements took place. And you'd walk into the warehouse and the place was just jam packed full of everything under the sun, wall to ceiling. And it didn't matter if you were in the offices, it was papers and filing cabinets, more and plans and everything, beakers and the full lab and you name it, it was just wall to wall. And over the last, since now it is 2023, when we go and we walk through that place, it's mind boggling to me to see the transformational change. A lot of people go there and they look and they say, holy cow, you guys got so much work to do. And I look at it and say, wow, look how much we've accomplished to date. You look at the vacant area, that open land, all the debris, everything that's been cleared from that area. You go in the warehouse and the offices and everything. It's a fully cleaned and functional building. And not only that, is it functioning, it really had the significant rehab, which gives it new life that it can be used now for 20, 30, 40 years before it needs significant improvements. And then really what happened was, from my perspective, is that we had a piece of property that you couldn't give away in Humboldt County. Nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole. They tried and nobody would take it. And it was really as the Harbor District that stepped up to the plate when nobody else wanted this thing and took a lot of risk.
We didn't want it either.
There was a lot of risk that the Harbor District took. And there was a lot of contamination on the property. So in addition to the new market tax credits, there was, as Pat had mentioned earlier today, $13.5 million worth of contamination that the EPA removed. Then the Harbor District took out an additional loan of approximately $1.2 million from Coast Seafood to remove the remediation. And over time, we worked with the Environmental Protection Agency. And as we had discussed earlier today, is that I am exceedingly proud to say that the environmental impact report showed there are no requirements to do additional subsurface remediation on a pulp mill that the Harbor District acquired. It is an amazing feat in and of itself. It's something that we worked with the baykeeper, the environmental community, and a lot of people that really, really wanted the district to clean up that property. The aquaculture industry. It was a huge service, just cleaning up that contamination, working with the tribes and other people that wanted to see this, that Stephen worked on. It was that alone was a huge benefit. But then when you start to look at the transformational change that the new market tax credit has done, and the jobs and the other investments that's going in, and then really we look at this and I sort of see this as it really began to give the community hope. And it accumulated in a couple months ago that the Board of Supervisors adopted the environmental impact report unanimously for the Nordic Aqua Farms project. It's a major accomplishment in this county to actually have the Board of Supervisors have something that they could say yes about, and that the community sort of gets this feeling that we can do positive things in this, and we can get together. And I think you see it today with the offshore wind and the community benefit agreements. There's this feeling that as a community that we can say yes to projects and we can actually do it. A couple of years ago, I can tell you that was not the sentiment in this community at all. And the broad support, the broad-based community felt like government was absolutely failing them, and the planning commissions and government officials were just failing in having any kind of reasonable development. And the Harbor District really set the pathway for this. And I think a lot of it has to do with the new market tax credits and the work of the Humboldt Bay Development Association and this board. And so that's my diatribe. And I think that this district has really done an amazing job on this project.
I mean, I'm very convinced that if the Harbor District had not taken it over, those vats of that black pulping liquors would have been in the bay the next year. And it was like a few more inches of rain would have done it. So very timely. And that, how many tens of millions of dollars more would that have taken to clean up? Plus, having no oyster industry in the bay, We wouldn't have, like, Nordic wouldn't be wanting to pull out the water to do aquaculture, right? It would have. So that was, the timing of that was incredible.
It really pleases me to see you all, being willing to celebrate a little bit, because it's always easy to look glass half empty and look at the work ahead as someone who's been in the community for a long time, watching you, and sometimes consultant, sometimes contractor. I know I'm partly attracted to being on this commission because of this is a get her done group of people. I'm happy to harness up and help pull the cart, for the next 4 years. And I know I'm riding the coattails of y'all and good work.
I remember when this was first presented to us and we looked at each other and said, we got to do it.
I said, no, we don't have.
No. I remember. Anyway, yeah. It seems like 7 years went by pretty fast. And good job.
I have a picture. It's hanging in my office at home. And it's a picture of all of us standing in front of the first truck that they brought in. It's kind of a day like today. It was raining and cold and miserable. And I'll never forget that morning that we had Steve Kalanog from EPA out there. And it was the second time I'd met Steve. And we're showing him around the pulp mill. Before it was always something on the bay, some site, and it was Indian Island the first time. And he's looking around, and he had the same exact response that we all had the first time we went there. We're like, holy crap, this is a disaster waiting to happen. You look at it like that, and then you go look at it another 7, 8, 20 times over the next 2 weeks or a month, and you kind of get calloused. You kind of, it's like Larry said, when you walk around out there, you think, oh my God, it looks so good. And then, the person that you're showing around says, oh, this looks like crap. And so you kind of get callous. It's not that bad. I mean, and when you say a little bit of rain, and they had a meniscus on top of the tanks. You could see the water. Oh yeah, no, they were full to the top. The only reason they weren't is because the little valves on the bottom were crystallized and dripping and leaking. And it says something to the engineers who designed the place, because you don't have contamination in places that you probably should, largely because it was all contained properly. But it was the scariest thing, and you kind of get callous to it. And Steve Kalanog's walking around out there, and we're all kind of looking at him like, yeah, his eyes are, and he just, after about 10 minutes of walking around looking at things, he walks off by himself and he says, I gotta make a phone call, you guys, I'll be right back. And he goes away for a couple of minutes. He comes back and says, guys, I just moved this to the most potential catastrophic site on the West Coast. You need to call your congressman, and you need to call him today, right now. And because it was during the government shutdown, and was that 2012? That's when all federal employees were not going anywhere or doing anything because they had shut down the government. And I called John Driscoll, he was at home, and he's like, I'll call Jared. I don't know. Nobody's doing anything. I'm not in the office, all this, and I don't know. 20 minutes later, Kalanog gets a phone call, and he says, all right, I'm moving trucks in tonight. I got $800,000. Your congressman is something. I got $800,000. Trailers are on their way here. Tanks are on their way here tonight. And they did. And the next day we went down there, and they had the tank. They were all getting set up and running hoses and pipes. And we were all down there checking it out. And we took a picture. And that's my favorite picture. I love that picture. And we're all standing in front of the trailer. The goofy commissioners have no idea what we got ourselves into.
600 truckloads went to Washington with
Yeah. A lot of truckloads of. And we had one guy fall in a tank. And a tank that when I'm asking them, well, what happens when it's pH of 14, what's that mean? And the one guy from the Coast Guard says, well, if human bodies spends more than 6 hours in there, it just turns to jelly. Like, oh, God.
That's what they did to the trees. So.
And people's notes, their notes were still on their desk. Okay, they literally, I don't know what date it was, but the day they were there, they still, they ate their lunch and their pens were sitting on their pad like that. On desks all over the
They
place.
sent them home on Friday and never came back.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
But that's what, so can I?
Yeah, please.
And I could tell stories about like being out there on, Tulawa, what we're calling Indian Island, with the EPA task section and saying, hey, you should take a look at that pulp mill the Harbor District just bought. And we brought them over, but I do want to say, like, as we're planning these new developments, the idea that that company walked away and got away with it, essentially, the company, they're not paying a dime for that cleanup. We, as a society, we let them get away with that. And we continue to let companies get away with that in development. And so, that's something we have to remember as we're doing more development, that we cannot let private companies come someplace, make a killing, and then just like leave a mess like that. That's gonna cost us how many millions of dollars, how many headaches, and just and that close to an environmental disaster. Just let people get away with that.
That was criminal.
It is, that was very criminal. And the people and people got very rich off of it and are still rich, and that's the way the world works, but we gotta do what we can to make sure that's not the future.
I agree.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, any public comment?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to say congratulations, board, staff, the previous board. Somebody needs to get a hold of this printer and tell him. You guys need to get this to the press. You guys were beat and badgered and thrown at when this started, and you pulled it off. Out of the apartment.
And you've been on the board since the very inception as well.
Yes.
Thank you for your service, sir.
And when do we get a reset on that? You can go ahead and do it right now. Oh, we're doing it tomorrow with whiskey. Yeah, that's right. 5 o'clock.
If they write a
tomorrow.
story, can we make it like I told you so? Or something like as the headline?
People out there that you need to take and throw it in their face.
I think a big finger up there on the tower. Sorry, did I do that?
Good job. You guys, I mean, we all know, we don't need to say it again, but I mean, you guys basically saved the day. I mean, if there was catastrophe, none of us could do anything right now.
Hey,
And
let
that
me,
needs to be put out. You pulled it off. You did it and you won.
well, we're not done yet. Let's,
Well, yeah,
before we
but
start
this
doing
one-
our dance, let's make sure let's do a couple more. Let's have another couple steps down the road before we get too drunk. I do have a question. When was the last time anybody was to the top of the boiler?
Yeah, I don't think they're letting people do that anymore.
I haven't been there I haven't been there since COVID.
Let's go for a walk.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for a walk.
It's the best view you get.
Oh, it is. It's
anywhere,
incredible.
but
It's the highest building between San Francisco and Portland.
Can you actually get up there
And we
without
can go
like
up on the roof.
dying?
Sure, I'm not sure what.
It's stairs,
what's
it's easy.
I haven't been up there long.
And I got plenty of rope.
It's
rock climbing
fine.
equipment.
We need to, we'll go look at it first.
Well, yeah, I'll go, let me know. I'll go with you. I'll go. I've been up there.
First and see
We're
what.
gonna
the
call for
ladders-
vote up there. We're gonna do it
Yeah,
here.
Yeah. Go ahead, pick up a bottle of scotch on the way.
The great stairs are, the great mesh stairs are great. You can look down and see all the way to the bottom when you're on the 20th floor. It's pretty.
And you
cool.
don't touch your eyes the whole time. Don't touch your eyes or pick your nose. I mean, I have a problem with both of those things. Oh, so we need a vote, a roll call. It's a
Roll call
resolution.
vote, Commissioner Benson? I'm
Yes.
trying to remember who made the motion. I'm sorry. Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Sure.
Commissioner Higgins,
I know he votes yes.
President Dale.
Yes. I have his proxy. That's it.
Well, before we close,
Yes, please. Future agenda
can
items.
I bring up something real quick? Just that I will not be able to make March 23rd. I don't know if you need me for a quorum. I'd be available any other day that week, but that's our board meeting at RC. It'll be a day after the 28th.
Yeah, it won't be on the, that was my mistake on the 23rd. It won't be it'll be either the 29th or the 30th.
I got you down on the 29th. That's a Thursday.
Yeah.
All right.
It'll be the 29th or the 30th.
may need just a little flexibility based on the county factor. And our ability.
I'm very inflexible. And Mr. Benson. Yeah, Commissioner Benson.
Yeah, on future agenda items, I want to propose. Again, as I'm onboarding to, maybe have, maybe one conservation or recreation project reported on per meeting, just, maybe just for 2 or 3 months, just to sort of catch up with it. Maybe you're all steeped in it. You don't need to hear it again. In that case, I could just go have lunch with Rob and get caught up, but this could also be a venue for just, a short presentation on just, Spartina one time or Eelgrass or water trails or whatever's big and hot, just
The next meeting, we're gonna have one on the eelgrass.
Okay.
So there you go.
So maybe it'll just happen without me asking for it, but it's something that I'd be interested in my onboarding process, is just to maybe have one
those things.
Well, typically we have actions going on a routine basis. Seems like lately we've been kind of dotting i's and crossing t's and not. We haven't had any permits in front of us. We haven't had any actions. I mean, right before you came on, we did the whole Spartina thing.
A bunch of stuff.
And
And I read the notes, and I know that.
You should probably
Yeah, the next
give us a
meeting,
report on
what
that.
you're gonna get is the big report that. At the next meeting, the big report is just gonna be the entrainment model. That Josh Steinbeck did. Which is
Good night, Leroy.
the zooplankton and the larvae, that's gonna be the big report that's gonna go in. And then associated with that is the master Bay One intake permit for the Harbor District. So that's gonna be the big thing. And then the second one will be the Eelgrass cooperative agreement with Caltrans, if that all goes according to plan.
You're gonna be tired of hearing me talk at the next meeting.
Yes, yes. So you're probably getting your 3 meetings for.
Yeah, it seems like we've been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, for a while, it's just like every item is like some kind of land deal.
And get used to Pat talking, when these things come up, Pat talks a lot.
It's gonna get crazy.
Yeah, did you adjourn us?
Oh, yes. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, sir.